If you've ever felt like you're completely screwed in a situation, there's no way to fight your way out of what happened on the tabletop, this series is for you. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some pictures from a game that a client of mine was playing, and I'm going to break the game down for you, and I'm going to identify where he went wrong and how he threw the game and how he could have recovered the game. Now, this was actually a really awesome coaching session, and I wish I had filmed it to show it to all of you guys, but I've been doing a lot of these recently, so I'm going to start taking pictures from some of my clients so I can help all of you out as well. So this was a game of Blood Angels versus the Death Guard, and this was going to end up as a narrow Death Guard victory for a couple key reasons that I'm going to demonstrate to you today. So I'm not going to break the entire list down, but effectively for the Blood Angels, I'll kind of draw some arrows here for you guys so you can see the things. My client had scouts here. He had Fight First Blade Guard veterans and Mephiston handing out right here. He had JPI, 3-man Sanguinary Guard, 6-man Sanguinary Guard with Dante, intercessors, and a land raider full of assault centurions, and this is another squad of scouts. That was more or less the army. Now, as far as the Death Company player or Death Guard player was concerned, this is going to be his Mortarion right here. He's got a big squad of zombies back here. Forgot the name for Poxwalkers back here. Fetid bloat drone, fetid bloat drone, fetid bloat drone. He's got a demon prince right here, and there's going to be a chaos spawn hanging out right here. And then over here, we've got more Poxwalkers and an infiltrating unit of Poxwalkers here. All right, so that's the game state that as is, just so you guys are aware of the units that are on the tabletop. Now, what happens is in turn one, the Death Guard player, turn one, our Death Guard player moves forward, right? And our Blood Angels player goes forward as well. Our Blood Angels player, number one move is we're going to send our scouts, which were down here, to deal with these Poxwalkers. I actually approve of this move. Not a bad move at all. You got to get rid of that trash. Just get rid of it. Force him to come out. Afterwards, his Land Raider deployed down at the bottom. As you can see, it has moved up, and I can draw a little arrow for you right here so you can see. This guy started here, has moved out here. Not really doing very, very much. He's got one blow drone, he's got two blow drone, he's got three blow drone, he's got Mortarion starting to creep around the corner here. After he had sent the scouts up to kill the Poxwalkers, he also moved his 3-man Sanguinary Guard squad hanging out in this little corner. Now, it's worth noting that we also have a unit of Sanguinary Guard in reserves, and we have a Sanguinor in reserves here. And our Death Guard player has two, I think, squads of Deathrail Terminators. Now, this was the first big mistake that happened in the game, and I want to identify this. Right here, what we're looking at is we're looking at the Fight First Blade Guard veterans that ended up charging this squad of Poxwalkers. This was a really big, almost disastrous error, and when I say almost disastrous, it was disastrous. What our Blood Angels player fell for was a trap where he dedicated a hyper valuable unit to go kill his opponent's trash. This is exactly what the Death Guard player would hope to see. They want that Blade Guard veteran unit exposed early on. So because of where our Death Guard player was positioned, he's now going to be able to start blasting away into that flat 3 wound infantry with his flat 3 wound shooting. This is not a great place for us to be turn one throwing out our Blade Guard veterans, especially when we as the Blood Angel player have a lot of other options that could have worked a heck of a lot better. So for example, we could have sent these scouts forward to start dealing with these Poxwalkers. We could have sent Mephiston, who is here, forward to start going and dealing with those Poxwalkers. Instead, Mephiston came up onto the behind the objective here. These were two really, really, really big errors that our Blood Angel player made. What this is going to allow for is a really, really big swing on the tabletop. Now, before I go any further, I want to demonstrate one more thing that our opponent could have done or that our Blood Angel player could have done a little bit better to put himself in a better freaking board space. So, if you take a look, this Land Raider could have been deployed right here. Now, this is on Search and Destroy, and yes, I know what people say. You can't put a Land Raider here because he can't move through the walls on GW1. However, because of the army that he's playing against, you could just deploy this Land Raider right out in the middle, because this is still legal deployment area. You could start him here, which means that oh, geez, did that just make a little star for me? All right, very fun. So you could start this little Land Raider hanging out right here. Our Death Guard player only has Strength 10 shooting d6 plus 2 shots from these fetid bloat drones, and he's only going to be able to shoot you with probably one, just because of where they're deployed. Because remember, this bloat drone was deployed up here, this bloat drone was deployed here, and then this one was all the way back here, which means only one bloat drone would have been able to shoot him, which effectively meant that the Land Raider was going to be at 0 risk deploying here. Now, for those of you who don't know, this Land Raider full of Assault Centurions is designed to murderize, big monsters. So a 3-man squad of freaking Assault Centurions will deal like 36 damage to a big knight in Liberated Assault Group Blood Angels, which is what this is. So this guy's delivery job is to go and kill Mr. Mortarion. This is not the way to do it. So he decided to take an entire turn of basically moving this Land Raider nowhere, and that's a big problem. All right, so we have Blade Guard veterans that came out and they killed the Poxwalkers, but unfortunately, it didn't really do very much for our opponent, or for our Blood Angels player, because our opponent, the Death Guard here, also had a spawn that was right here in the center. So they're going to be scoring primary here. So that is the number one mistake. Sending out the Blade Guard veteran was a big error. We should have sent out our scouts. We should have sent out Mephiston to deal with the trash. The scouts probably would have died, but you know what? If he's exposing a bloat drone to kill our scouts, we're happy, because then we can start nuking the bloat drone with, say, Godhammer las cannons, etc., like that. And that means that is an entire fetid bloat drone, which is not going to be shooting into our Blade Guard veterans, which is desperately what we don't want him to be doing. In addition to that, if our opponent wanted to start trying to kill Mephiston, that's great, because Mephiston is a trap. Now, this is not exclusive to Blood Angels, so think about the units that you have. You never want to dedicate valuable units into killing your opponent's trash. You always want to use your trash or your units like Mephiston, who's not trash, but he does force your opponent to overly commit to actually really deal with Mephiston, because Mephiston is like a 125-point model, but what he does is he forces your opponent to dedicate like 190 points into him if they want to have any effect on him, because he's so abnormally durable. So these are the initial stages that we made mistakes on. I do actually like where this Sanguinary Guard Squad is. It's doing a couple things. One, it's going to force Mortarion to come deal with him. They're at 0 risk of being shot by this bloat drone or by this bloat drone. So the only thing that's actually in position to come deal with these Sanguinary Guard is Mortarion, which is going to force Mortarion to expose himself to the Land Raider and the Assault Centurions. So I do really, really want to applaud the positioning of this Sanguinary Guard Squad at the bottom. Maybe I should, sorry, I was just pointing on the wrong screen. So let me cover this with a green. So I'm going to put a green check mark by these guys. That is not a very pretty green, but whatever. You guys get what I'm saying. So this is good. But all the red stuff was things that we probably should have changed. All right, let's look at the next picture. All right, so now this is the turn 2 movement phase for our Blood Angel player. I'm not happy with what he did here. Let's take it from the top. First thing that we're looking at right off the bat is our boy decided to send these Blade Guard veterans out to charge into this bloat drone. Our Death Guard player, being a savvy man, decided to rapid ingress with his Death Shroud Terminators and then heroic in to the Blade Guard veterans. Now, unfortunately, I can't really zoom in here. Maybe I can actually zoom a little bit. Let me try this for just a second. See if this can get us a little bit of a better image of what's going on here. You guys will have to pardon me. Okay, so what if you can really see what we're looking at here is we're seeing the Death Shroud heroic into the Blade Guard veterans. Where the Blade Guard veterans are positioned, he's only got about 3 Blade Guard vets who could, maybe 4 that could hit the bloat drone, and 2 would have to hit the Death Shroud. He made a really big error, and what he did is he put all the Blade Guard veterans into the bloat drone, and he didn't put any of them into the Death Shroud. So the Death Shroud effectively are going to end up killing this entire unit. In addition to that, the bloat drone's actually going to spike his save, and he's going to live. And he's going to lose no Death Shroud either. So this is a really big problem. See, had he just mentally pivoted, because he made basically twofold mistakes were here. First mistake was actually sending the Blade Guard veterans out to charge the bloat drone. That should have been Mephiston, it should have been Scouts, it should have been things like that, right? He should have shot it with the Land Raider, charged into Mephiston. That's what these guys are here for. Should have been JPI that he sent out at him, these types of things. But, okay, he makes the first mistake of sending the Blade Guard veterans into the bloat drone. The next thing that we would expect to happen after our opponent decides to rapid ingress with these Death Shroud is what we should have done is we should have had Dante, where you can see his unit, these guys right here. They were foolishly, and foolishly is probably too strong a word, but these were in error put right here. because Dante had started the turn right here. They should have been moved up into the corner here. Had they been moved up into the corner here, which is where they should be, they would have been more staged to project their threat across the board in latter turns. They could have gone anywhere through here very easily. And they also would have been screening out a rapid ingress on his Death Shroud Terminators. So I hope you guys recognize that. I'm going to draw this out again, just so you guys understood what I'm saying. Mistake number 1 was charging Blade Guard Vets out. Mistake number 2 was our Dante's staging. Dante should have been staged in here. Had he been staged in here, he would have blocked out the rapid ingress for the Death Shroud. It would have pushed it out. Now, the Death Shroud maybe still would have rapid ingressed, and maybe they still would have done heroic. But had they heroics, Dante would have been in position to very easily charge into the Death Shroud as well, which would have been disastrous for both the Death Shroud and for that Blade Guard, and for that Blow Drone. It actually would have made the mistake of the Blade Guard veterans being pushed out into a huge win. So that would have been a actually pro move had he been put here, baited his opponent into doing a rapid ingress to heroic. Dante charges in. That's a game-winning move right there. So, but we didn't do it. Instead, we staged it in the wrong position. Due to the style of ruins that we actually have here, we very, very easily could have staged Dante in the central ruin because the blow drones could not have seen to shoot him from that position. Big, big mistake on our Blood Angels players. So I hope you guys see that. Now, I got to minimize the screen a little bit because I want to take a quick look at the rest. Oh, not minimize. I'm just going to change the size here so that we can take a quick look at the rest of the board state. So I just got to refit this. And if you guys like this format, and if you guys are learning from this format, please let me know. Give me some comments down below. Let me know what you think about it. I'm going to see if I can clean it up a little bit, but I think this is going to be incredibly helpful for a lot of players out there who tend to make incorrect decisions. Now, other things that have happened that are quite good on the board state here are going to be things like JPI. He sent JPI out here to go ahead and kill this what do you call this thing? Chaos Spawn. Okay, cool. You killed the Chaos Spawn. Something has to kill the Chaos Spawn. I like it. The Land Raider has moved on up, and it's going to be positioning for Mortarion. I also really like this corner where he sent our Sanguinary Guard to go deal with the Blow Drone. When the Sanguinary Guard go deal with this Blow Drone, it forces a couple responses. First of all, now Mortarion has to go this way. Or he has to bring something in reserves to deal with them. Or he has to shoot them to death. So this is actually a really, really good play for a Blood Angel player because it's forcing our opponent to bring their scary resources backwards where they're not going to be particularly effective on the tabletop. So I want to give a big applause for that one. All right, now let's look at the next turn here. Boom. Here's basically what ends up happening. Blow Drone comes down, kills Sangard. Now this was unfortunately a bit of a whiff. The Sangard didn't kill the Blow Drone. It happens. So this Blow Drone ends up killing 2 Sanguinary Guard. This Blow Drone falls back, right? Mortarion moves forward, charges into the Land Raider. Death Shroud came down, charged into the Land Raider. Rapid Ingress Sanguinary Guard. These Death Shroud, and if you can see up at top here, there's like one Blade Guard veteran left alive with our Chaplain. It's kind of an issue. We have a Demon Prince who has claimed the center, right? And so the Death Guard player has moved out in force. Now the board state is not looking particularly great for our Blood Angel player. So we start seeing how he's advanced and how it's starting to put a lot of pressure on our Blood Angel player. Our Blood Angel player now has to be able to deal with this Death Shroud, has to deal with the Demon Prince, has to deal with these Death Shroud and the Blow Drone. This Blow Drone has fallen back. This Blow Drone has already dealt with 2 of the Sanguinary Guard. Now the Sanguinary Guard is effectively neutered. Now we're starting to see some bad things happen. Imagine the same board state, but now these 3 Sanguinary Guard are alive. Dante's unit was here. All of these Death Shroud are dead, and this Blow Drone is dead, and all of the Blade Guard veterans are alive. Had we just made those changes, and remember that still would have been errors that our Blood Angel hero had made, but had we made those changes, this board state would be wildly different because he wouldn't be able to be dealing with this Land Raider. He wouldn't be able to deal with these Sanguinary Guard. He would be down by both of these models. These Death Shroud would have had to be into Dante. This Demon Prince would have also had to have been into Dante. That would have changed absolutely everything. So let's look at the next table, and we see a continuing cascade of errors. Some bad things have happened here. Some decent things, but some bad things as well. We've got JPI that have come in from reserves, which, okay, fine. I think if I remember correctly, they were doing an established locus. Totally fine. This is part of me. Let me fix this because I don't think you guys can see down there. There we go. So we've got JPI that have come off of reserves. No problem. So they're doing a little bit of things. We've got, unfortunately, we still have our scouts that are still in this back corner doing absolutely nothing. See, these guys could have come in reserves to do this action, which would have allowed us to have these JPI on the table earlier doing other things. It's a bit of a problem. Mephiston's holding the objective. Honestly, I don't mind this. Someone has to hold the objective, but I would have much rather had Mephiston send out here earlier. Now, our Sanguinary Guard with Dante ended up charging in and killing the 3 Death Shroud that were up here, but they also allowed for a heroic intervention of the Demon Prince. The Demon Prince sadly actually popped off and killed, I believe, if I remember correctly, killed like 3 or 4 Sanguinary Guard. This is a horrible, horrible, horrible situation for our Blood Angel hero to be in. Now, we also have the Assault Centurions who came out, and they shot and charged Mortarion. They did not use their stratagem to be +1 to wound against Mortarion, which meant Mortarion lives on like 1 wound. This was another big mistake. Because of the resource allocation that our Blood Angel player had, he didn't have the ability to be both +1 to wound over here and +1 to wound over here. Or there's something where he might have actually, maybe this was actually just a brain fart where he chose not to be +1 to wound against Mephiston. The difference there would have been wounding on 3s, because they go to strength 12 in the British Assault group. They would have been wounding on 3s, strength 12 into toughness 12 with +1 to wound would be 3s, with 4 wheels to wound, versus wounding on 4s, which is what it ended up being. And then he ended up living on like 1 wound, if I'm not mistaken. So the difference between that would have been a dead Demon Primarch, which would have set him up for a lot of freaking success. He also foolishly had the Land Raider shoot into our Death Shroud Terminators here instead of shooting into the Mortarion, right? Because Mortarion needed to die from between the Assault Centurions and the Land Raiders shooting. We needed to be killing Mortarion. We didn't have to be killing these Death Shroud Terminators right now. That was a horrible, horrible error on our opponent's part, which really basically cinched in the loss, because now the Blood Angels player is going to be out of all resources and who's never going to be able to handle this or this. So this, not checking to see the heroic interventions, allowed the Demon Prince an extra turn of hitting Dante. Then not focus firing on Mortarion when he decided he needed to kill Mortarion. Big freaking error. Never split fire unless your goals are already achieved. So between all of this, the game actually basically ended up in a wash and ended up in a loss. So I know we spoke about this in depth in the coaching session, and I think we basically fixed all the thought process errors that led us to this. But this might be really, really valuable for you guys to see where people make errors in thought process and how you could actually correct a game state. At any point in time, we could have changed any of these factors and rescued the game. Here, we could have just focus fired the Land Raider and the Centurions into Mortarion, make sure Mortarion dies. That puts us in a good position to be able to rescue the board state. Here, where Dante actually ends up charging in and killing these Death Shroud, you could have positioned so that you're not giving your opponent the free heroic intervention, which is tying you up. Unfortunately, we didn't do it, so that was another mistake. Previously in the turns, we saw the Blade Guard veterans being dedicated way too soon. We see that our scouts in the back corner have never been utilized. They're not even uppy downing to go do the things that are necessary to be done. So what you can see is a cascading failure. So what I want from you guys is I want you to recognize the thing that makes a player a very good player is this. You do not allow mistakes to turn into more mistakes. When you make a mistake, you stop it there. It's totally fine. Hey, I made a mistake, you accept it, and you move on. But you don't allow that mistake to turn into cascading mistakes, as I like to say it. So, for me, I'm top 100 players in the world. I'm really, really, really top level in this game. When I play against other top players, when I play against John Lennon, when I play against Nick Nanavati, when I play against any of these guys, I've had blasts. I beat them, they beat me. When I play against these guys, what happens is they make mistakes. I make mistakes. But what they don't do is they don't allow that mistake to turn into future mistakes. They stop it in its tracks. Everyone in Warhammer makes errors. The key to becoming a great player is not allowing the error you made to turn into future errors. So take that with you what you will. I'm going to take 2 minutes and I'm just going to go on to TTS real quick, and I'm going to show you how we could have positioned this board state slightly differently in the very beginning of the game to give us a huge leg up on the match. So let's just do that right now. I'm going to click this button. Boom, we see a TTS screen. Great. I've more or less replicated the map that we were looking at here. So this is the same deployment that we had. The exact same thing. Scouts should go forward, and they're going to do their scout move. Then they'll do their walk move. They're going to charge into these poxwalkers. They're going to kill these poxwalkers. We're happy with that. Instead of our Blade Guard veterans coming out to kill these poxwalkers, we're going to go in with our scouts and with our Mephiston, who should be somewhere over here. Sorry, I forgot to deploy him. So they're going to go up there, and Mephiston advances and charges. That's why I moved him so far. They're going to go up there. I will go ahead and stage the Blade Guard vets up here. Dante and crew will immediately stage right behind them. Because since I went first, there's no way that the bloat drones will be able to draw a line of sight. They can all just stage here together. These guys, I actually really liked the move that he had where he put them here, turn 1. Totally fine with that. Once I'm right here, and the other thing that I would have changed is I would have just deployed the Land Raider right out in the open. Sure, your opponent can deal 3 to 6 damage with one bloat drone, but like, great. Because then you get to kill a bloat drone with your Hunter Killer Missile, your God Hammer, las cannons, all of those things. And it still would have forced him to send Mortarion eventually at the Land Raider. Would have been a big problem. That wasn't a Land Raider Redeemer, it was a normal Land Raider. But a Land Raider sitting right here is a very, very big issue for this Death Guard player. Because it forces him to either focus fire with bloat drones, which means they're not going to my Hyper Elite Infantry, or it forces the big Demon Primarch to come out, which is exactly where I want him to be for the Assault Centurions to go out. So this right here is a much, much, much more dominant space when we go in like this and we kill all these poxwalkers. So if we had we just made this one shift, right, the board state completely flips. And then had our opponent done the same things? Now, of course, our opponent would probably do different things in this scenario, but one Chaos Spawn could not deny this, which would have given you a huge leg up on points. Mortarion probably has to come out. Demon Prince and Nurgle is going to follow him. You see the difference in board presence here? Now Mortarion effectively automatically dies in turn 2. And this gives us a completely different game. So hopefully this was illuminating for you. If you guys like this content, smash that like button, share it with your friends. This is some of the really my favorite things to do in coaching is to help identify scenarios that you could improve even after you make mistakes. So if you like this stuff, smash it, share it with your friends, and until next time, crump on. Bye-bye.